The studio lights burned hot above the polished floor of the roundtable. A nationally syndicated political panel show that rarely made waves. Until tonight, Karoline Leavitt sat tall under the glow, her blue blazer crisp, her expression unreadable. Across from her, Representative Jasmine Crockett adjusted her mic, flipping through her notes with the cool confidence of someone who thrived in the spotlight. The moderator, tone neutral, began his introduction. Tonight, a special conversation about race, responsibility, and rhetoric in Washington. Joining us, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and former White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt. The camera cut to a split screen. Viewers across the country leaned forward. "Let's begin with this," the moderator said. "Congresswoman Crockett, last week you made headlines suggesting that certain conservative voices are, quote, performers, pretending to care about real America." "What did you mean?" Jasmine answered without hesitation. "I meant exactly what I said. There are people out here wearing patriotism like a costume while ignoring the pain of real communities of color." Karoline didn't move. The moderator turned to her. "Karoline," she offered a tight smile. "I think it's rich that a career politician from a gated district is lecturing anyone on what real America feels." Jasmine scoffed. "Excuse me." Karoline leaned in slightly, her voice cool. "No, really. You sit in Congress, protected by metal detectors and handlers. And you've got the nerve to say, 'I don't care about Americans because I talk about border security.' That's embarrassing." The studio tensed. Jasmine's smile flattened. "It's embarrassing that you think yelling about immigrants makes you a patriot." "I didn't yell," Karoline snapped. "And I'm not the one turning every disagreement into a race issue to dodge responsibility." The moderator tried to interject. "Ladies," Jasmine turned fully toward Karoline, "you don't know anything about what it means to live as a minority in this country." Karoline didn't flinch. "I know what it means to be silenced for saying hard truths. Like how your party weaponizes race while failing the communities it claims to represent." The audience murmured. Then Karoline said it loud, clear, without hesitation. "Sit down, Jasmine. You're embarrassing yourself." Gasps, a few claps, shouts, but Jasmine Crockett didn't blink. Her face changed, less amused, more dangerous. "You just picked the wrong fight," she said. Karoline smiled. "No, Jasmine, I picked the right one." Finally, Jasmine's eyes narrowed sharp and warning. "I'm embarrassing myself," she repeated, slow and deliberate. "You sit here parroting every MAGA talking point, like a press release, and dare to talk down to me." Karoline leaned back, unfazed. "I'm talking up to the truth. It's above you right now." The moderator looked visibly stressed. "Let's please keep this about policy," but Jasmine wasn't listening. Her voice was icy. "You've never passed a bill. You've never walked a neighborhood gutted by policy failures. You've never had to explain to a grieving mother why her child was shot because Congress couldn't act." Karoline tilted her head. "Is this where I'm supposed to feel guilty for believing in law and order, for thinking that criminals should be prosecuted regardless of their zip code or skin color?" Jasmine raised her hand, palm out. "That right there, that's why this country is exhausted. People like you." "No, Jasmine," Karoline said, voice cutting clean through the tension. "They're exhausted by excuses." A ripple of gasps moved through the audience. One person whispered, "Damn," just loud enough for the mic to catch it. The moderator looked down at his notes, likely realizing the panel had become a battleground. "Congresswoman," he tried again, but Jasmine wasn't finished. "You come from privilege. You talk like the rules were written for you, 'cause they were. And whenever someone like me speaks up, someone like you tries to diminish it." Karoline smiled, but her eyes stayed cold. "Maybe if someone like you stopped hiding behind victimhood and started delivering results, this country wouldn't be in crisis." Jasmine leaned in, voice low. "Say that again. I dare you." Karoline didn't blink. "Stop hiding behind victimhood." The air was electric. Still, the cameras rolled. The moment sharpened. Jasmine stared, lips pressed tight, breathing slow. Then she spoke, measured and dangerous. "You know what the real problem is?" she asked. You don't come from truth, you come from theater. And you've confused applause from right-wing podcasts with public support. But that's not America. Karoline leaned forward, her voice sharp. And you've confused Twitter likes with leadership. You talk loud, Jasmine, but when it comes to solutions, all you've got are hashtags. Jasmine's smile turned bitter. You wouldn't last a week in my district. I wouldn't try to survive in a district ruined by 30 years of your party's policies, Karoline. Shot back. I'd fix it. That hit hard. The moderator looked ready to cut to break, but the audience was frozen. Jasmine shook her head. Fix it. The only thing you fix is headlines. You speak like someone who's read about struggle, not lived it. Karoline's voice dropped. And you speak like someone who profits from keeping people in it. Another murmur from the crowd. You sit on committees, Karoline continued, throwing around words like equity and justice while your constituents keep bleeding. You don't want solutions. You want outrage. You build your brand on broken systems. Jasmine slammed her hand on the desk. Don't you dare say I benefit from pain. Karoline didn't blink. You show up with cameras and slogans. I show up with policy. The moderator tried again. Let's cool it down, but Jasmine kept going. You think fast talk makes you right. You're not right, you're just louder. Karoline's voice dropped to a whisper. No, Jasmine. I'm just done pretending that weakness equals wisdom. Gasps again. Jasmine's voice was quiet but sharp as glass. You just showed America why we can't move forward. You don't want unity. You want obedience. Karoline stood. Her mic caught the sound of her voice echoing faintly in the room. No, I want accountability. And I won't apologize for saying what most Americans are too afraid to say. The moderator finally cut to break. Pale, trembling. But no one in the audience moved. Because this wasn't over. Firecracker Karoline just ended Jasmine Crockett live. Outside the studio, protesters and supporters had already begun to gather. News vans lined the street. The segment wasn't even over. But the nation was reacting, and both women knew this. Moment would follow them for the rest of their careers. The show officially ended, but the storm had only begun. As the cameras cut, producers rushed onto the stage, scrambling to separate Karoline and Jasmine before tensions escalated further. Staff whispered urgently into earpieces. Security hovered, unsure whether they were managing a political debate or a prize fight. Karoline exited first, walking straight past crew and assistants, her expression as composed and steely as it had been on air. Her phone was already vibrating. Dozens of missed calls, a flood of messages. One from her media director caught her eye. Hannity, at 8. Be ready. You just made history. Outside, the atmosphere was electric. Supporters waved signs. Karoline speaks. For us, no more excuses. A handful of protesters pushed back, holding signs with Jasmine's face and slogans like Truth Matters. Stop the hate. Inside the studio, Jasmine stood still. Her team surrounded her, but she waved them off. Her jaw clenched, her eyes simmering with both fury and reflection. She didn't regret her words, but she could feel the narrative already sliding out of her hands. An aide leaned in. We need to get ahead of this. The clips are everywhere. I don't care, Jasmine said flatly. Let them clip it. Let them see what happens when someone like me doesn't back down. She turned to a standby camera and looked directly into the lens. If Karoline Leavitt thinks she can bulldoze her way through Washington, she'd better prepare for a fight she won't win. That too was recorded. Within moments, it hit the internet under the hashtag Crockett claps back. But Karoline was already one move ahead. That evening, live on Hannity, Karoline appeared calm, confident, and unapologetic. We've had enough of identity politics and performative outrage, she said. Jasmine Crockett wanted a shouting match. I brought facts. That's why she lost control. Hannity grinned. You called her embarrassing. Do you stand by that? Karoline didn't hesitate. Absolutely. Because Americans deserve strength, not sound bites. And Jasmine proved my point. Clips of her appearance lit up social media. Comment sections became battlegrounds. Some hailed Karoline as fearless. Others condemned her as incendiary. But no one could ignore the moment. Cable news ran the footage on repeat. Opinion columns poured in. Podcasts dissected every word. And in a quiet DC office, Jasmine scrolled through reactions in silence. Her phone buzzed with texts from fellow Democrats and backing her, some urging caution. One message stood out. "She's not done, and neither should you be." Jasmine locked her screen, stood, and looked at her reflection. This wasn't over. It had just begun by morning. The Capitol buzzed not over legislation or global affairs, but the now viral face-off between Karoline Leavitt and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Cable news spun competing narratives. Fox News crowed, "Leavitt schools Crockett in brutal exchange." MSNBC countered, "Crockett stands her ground against far-right fury." CNN tried to split the difference. The debate that split America. Lawmakers whispered in hallways, watched clips in elevators, shared memes behind closed doors. Some Republicans saw a rising star in Karoline. Others feared her fire might backfire. Democrats were just as rattled. Jasmine had defended herself, but had she won? At Karoline's press office, the atmosphere was electric. Her communications director burst in holding a tablet. 9 million views in under 24 hours. Trending in 5 countries. "The RNC wants you on stage for next week's town hall." Karoline didn't look up from her laptop. "Tell them I'll be there and make sure no one tries to tone me down." The director raised an eyebrow. "They won't. After last night, they want you louder." Karoline allowed herself a faint smile. Her base wasn't just was hardening. She knew what they wanted. No apologies, no retreat, and she was ready to deliver. But she also understood the battle had left a mark. Across town, Jasmine Crockett sat quietly in her office. Her phone vibrating with messages campaign donors, community leaders, national pundits. All of them had opinions. Her chief of staff entered with a printed email. "Rachel Marta wants you on tonight. Says it's time to set the record straight." Jasmine took the paper, but didn't read it. Her eyes were on the muted TV screen, looping footage of Karoline declaring, "You represent a seat. I represent the millions." "She's dangerous," Jasmine said. "Not because she's smart. Because she sounds right." Her aide nodded. "So what now?" Jasmine finally looked up. "We fight smarter. We don't match her fire, we smother it." She picked up her phone and called her campaign manager. Pushed the Crockett Town Hall announcement. "I'm going live Friday. No scripts, no handlers. Just me." The aide hesitated. "That's risky, so is letting her define me." That night, political TikTok, Instagram Reels, and X lit up with side-by-side comparisons. Debates broke out in classrooms, barbershops, churches, and cafes. The divide deepened. But one thing was clear. America wasn't just watching anymore. It was choosing sides. Friday night arrived. The energy outside Jasmine's town hall felt like campaign season, 6 months early. A line of supporters wrapped around the building, holding signs. "Jasmine fights back. Truth over talk. We stand with Crockett." Inside, Jasmine paced the stage before the cameras rolled. No podium, no teleprompter. Just a mic and a table with a few printed notes she didn't plan to use. Her staff had pleaded with her. Stick to policy, stay presidential. She ignored every word of it. When the live stream began, Jasmine stared directly into the camera. "A few nights ago, I was called embarrassing. I was told to sit down. I was told my leadership wasn't real. Here's my answer. I don't need your permission to stand tall. I was elected by the people, not appointed by a political cult." The crowd erupted. The live chat filled with fire emojis and cheers. Meanwhile, across the country, Karoline watched from a hotel suite in Arizona. Her phone buzzed constantly. She silenced it. She wasn't worried. Crockett's comeback only raised both of their profiles. That was the game. And Karoline had always played it 5 moves ahead. Her press aide entered holding a laptop. CNN's calling this a generational standoff. One pundit said it's like AOC versus the GOP, but Mina. Karoline smirked. Let them talk. The more they talk, the more I win. Back on Jasmine's stream, she continued, I'm not afraid of confrontation. I'm afraid of silence. The kind that follows when leaders smile for the cameras and ignore broken communities. Karoline Leavitt wants to be the voice of truth. Fine, let's put truth on stage. Debate it, anytime, anywhere. Let the people decide what real leadership looks like. It was a public challenge. Raw, unfiltered, impossible to ignore. Karoline leaned forward in her chair. She picked up her phone and opened XLET's Go. Name the time. You won't win the second round either. The tweet detonated online. Thousands of replies. Dozens of pundits weighing in. Breaking news banners lit up. Leavitt accepts Crockett challenge. Republican donors took note. Democratic strategists called emergency Zooms. A cultural reckoning had begun, and for both women, this was no longer a moment. It was a movement. By Monday morning, round 2 was confirmed. Thursday night. Location, Philadelphia. Broadcast on 5 major platforms. Hosted by a neutral independent outlet hungry for relevance, and now holding the most anticipated political showdown of the year. Headlines screamed, Fire Round 2, Crockett versus Leavitt. The fight for America's voice. 2 women, 2 visions. 1 stage campaign teams kicked into overdrive. Volunteers printed merch, booked venues for watch parties, launched ads built around their candidates' boldest moments. But the pressure inside each camp was brutal. At Jasmine's HQ, strategy got cutthroat. No personal attacks, one senior advisor warned. No desk slamming. No shouting. People love your fire, but they need to trust your control. Jasmine nodded, but her eyes told a different story. She'd stepped into the fire, and she wasn't stepping out. Meanwhile, Karoline's team doubled down. Their messaging was clean and sharp. No apologies, no fear, just facts. A new ad opened, with her saying, You represent a seat, I represent the millions. Followed by a voiceover. In a world of excuses, one woman speaks for the forgotten. She didn't rewrite the rules. She tore them up. By debate night, tension across the country was like a live wire. Online communities fractured. Liberals praised Jasmine's fire and composure. Conservatives hailed Karoline's resolve. Some dismissed it all as performative noise. Others saw something deeper. 2 women, locked in a battle for who defines American leadership. In their dressing rooms. Both candidates prepared in silence. Karoline stood before a mirror, cross necklace tucked under her blouse. Her media coach whispered, Stay cold, stay clear. Don't let emotion win. I don't do emotion, Karoline replied. I do impact. Across the venue, Jasmine set aside her notes and looked to her chief of staff. This one's not for the cameras, she said. It's for every voice that's ever been talked over. You ready? The staffer asked. I've been ready. The lights dimmed. The crowd hushed. Round 2 was about to begin.